and simple. The people who live around him don't want him there and believe that he has gotten a little too uppity. Because how could a black man afford to have land? How could he? He doesn't belong there. And that's why they're harassing him, and they are using law enforcement as a weapon against him, where he pays his taxes. This ain't the first time, and unfortunately, it will not be the last time. So America, hello somebody. Yasmin, I'm pissed.
Yeah, this is so ridiculous, and it really is just a blatant example of racism. It's very hard to deny the racism that's happening here. The fact that they burnt his Black Lives Matter flag can't possibly be interpreted as anything but racist. It's incredibly sad when people aren't able to reach their full potential to live meaningful and peaceful lives just because other hateful people do not want them to. Right, and I'll never understand why people create problems where there are none. And I'll never understand why people who clearly have some kind of emotional issues, let's say, insist on making those personal issues someone else's problems. It's like, just deal with your own problems, deal with yourself, and mind your own business. And that's basically what Karenism is. It's people who have their own issues, and instead of dealing with them, they do things like this to people like this man. This man should never have had to bear the brunt of his so-called neighbors' inadequacies, and he certainly shouldn't have to deal with the law in this way.
And they need to pass the Karen Act, because anybody that weaponizes the police, they need to be held
already
accountable.
Illegal, yeah.
I mean, yes, see, and people don't understand the stressors. This man is in the back seat of a police car for doing absolutely nothing but farming while black. You see, it's not just that moment. That's what, see, a lot of folks who not black, who never endured this kind of trauma and drama, you don't get it. It weighs on you over and over and over and over again. This man is being traumatized just because he is black, farming while black, just because those neighbors. And let me tell you something, this ain't just racism. This is anti-black racism. Let's put an exclamation point on it. Let's put a message in a bottle on a train, for real. Because this is anti-blackness playing out in real time in America. Look, we ain't even got to go back in time. This is happening right now. And for folks who believe in true justice and liberty, you have got to say that this shit right here is unacceptable. So Courtney Mallory, 41, now faces a felony charge. Do y'all hear that? A freaking felony charge of stalking neighbor, stalking these mofos. He has been accused of carrying out a bias-based terror campaign on his property in Yoder, about 30 miles east of Colorado Springs. Ain't that some shit? Now they done switched it around on him. Now I done told y'all, family, on Unbossed, we don't play games. This is a sad commentary on America. And we all should be ashamed and hurt by what this man and his family are going through. And you heard what that sister said who was carrying the camp, but not nothing happened to him. Not one hair on his head be touched. And it's a shame that we even got to say that in the 21st century. If you are a decent human being, you got to know and understand that what this man is going through is wrong all day long, 365 days of the year, and y'all should be outraged. Why the hell do black people always got to carry this anti-blackness and white supremacy on our backs and our necks and our chests and our hearts, our souls and our minds? You want to talk about pull yourself up by your bootstraps? This man and his family purchased that land. And now these mofos trying to harass him out of it. You know what? It's very reminiscent of what the KKK used to do. They riding up and down and all around this man's property. Let's put up this headline. How did African-American farmers lose 90% of their land? You know how they lost 90% of their land? Because of white supremacy terrorism. That's how they lost it. And the federal government and state governments being complicit. A combination of obscure legal mechanisms and racist institutions enabled and continues to enable developers to weasel it away. And there were points at time in this history where white folks just flat out took black people's land. Just took it. And we thought we were over that. Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Let's go ahead. This author right here, Brian, did a good article that he wrote in 2019. Brian writes, by the turn of the 20th century, former slaves and their descendants had amassed 14 million acres of land. Black agriculture was a powerhouse, and we still didn't get the damn 40 acres and a mule, but anyway, per capita, that were more black farmers than white farmers. By the turn of the 21st century, 90% of that land was lost. Hello? How does that happen? That should be your question in this moment. How and why does that happen? It's strategic, not by accident, on purpose. Brian further writes, some of that can be chalked up to the Great Migration when Southern blacks fled to the northern cities to escape the racist violence and systemic oppression of the South. Ran out of there, built that joint, and ran the hell out of there. Less known is the story of those who stayed in rural areas and their efforts to hold on to their land within a legal system that seemed designed to shift it, and the generational wealth it represented to white ownership seemed, Brian, you did that. Oh no, it was deliberate. Do y'all understand? See, so when Sister Turner is talking about systemic racism, this is the example. Cause y'all always, why I gotta bring it up? Cause it still exists. And y'all hurting people generationally. And even if Mr. Mallory does succeed in legally, which I hope that he does, he still has to bear the burden of even having to endure that. Like he's some little child. He's a man. A black man in America. Y'all humiliate. That's what they trying to do. They trying to break this man's spirit and his soul. But we, those of us who believe in justice and equality, we just not gonna let that happen. We're not gonna take this sitting down. Boss, listen, all of the viewers, I need y'all to go online and give this man some support and some love. And if you can be in El Paso County, in Colorado on the 17th at the or not at the county, but going to the Capitol, and help them pass this damn Karen law. This is a shame. None of us should sleep well at night knowing that this kind of stuff is still going on in this country. And this is just one of many examples that we can give you. That is it. I'm so glad Yasmin was here with me today. Yeah, I went on one and I'm proud of it. You have been watching Unbossed on this Monday in February, baby. We are breaking it down like it ain't never been broken. Yasmin, I was so glad to have you here with me today, darling. I cannot wait till you and I can do this again. I really do appreciate you, and I appreciate each and every one of the viewers. Now, you know what I want you to do. I want you to keep the faith, always, always keep the faith. But more importantly, coupled with that faith, baby, you gotta keep the fight. Until next time, I'm madder than a mofo, but I'll be back tomorrow.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family, to another week of the Watch List. It's Monday, you guys, the best damn day of the week. And you know what? Let's just start. Watch this.
Drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting common is when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink 1 or 2 beers.
They're making it laws where you can't drink when you want to. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving. And pretty soon we're going to be a communist country.
Pretty soon we're gonna be a communist country. I want you guys to watch that little bit one more time. This whole thing, this is folks in the 80s having issues with new laws around drinking and driving. In case you missed it off the top, I came in a little quick. Watch this again.
Drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting common is when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink 1 or 2 beers.
They're making it laws where you can't drink when you want to. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving. And pretty soon we're going to be a communist country.
Joining me on this fabulous show is Jessica Burbank. She's a TYT contributor, as you can probably tell already. I'm just trying to figure out why after this show, I can't down a couple beers in my truck on the way home. It's about to be a communist country, Jessica.
We're already working 11, 12 hours a day, Jayar. Roll Tide, goddamn, brother.
Communism is on its way. This is a good illustration of the way things, anytime something changes in our world, suddenly there's always this group that's like, why are you guys trying to step on my toes, bro? It's like, I want to drive drunk, let me be. Weird how that works. It's a constant and over and over and over again. Thank you guys for being here with us. I appreciate you on this afternoon here in Los Angeles. Since we've got Insanity already starting here off the top, we might as well go ahead and get started with our I guess our vegetable portion of the show, as we like to say. A very serious incident happened on a train that derailed, but there's so much behind this, you guys. Watch this.
Tonight, emergency crews desperately trying to get control of a potentially deadly situation with a controlled detonation. For 3 days, warning residents the burning wreckage of a freight train could explode, sending shrapnel and toxic fumes a mile in every direction over a rural Ohio community. Friday night, as many as 50 of the train's 150 cars derailed en route from Illinois to Pennsylvania. Today, the response focused on 5 cars carrying hundreds of thousands of pounds of vinyl chloride used to make PVC pipes and vehicle upholstery, and also linked to increased risk of cancer, according to the CDC.
East Palestine, Ohio is dealing with this chemical spill and burns that are going on after this train derailment that was carrying all kinds of chemicals that many people probably can't even pronounce. So as this is going down, you can imagine the environmental effects of this type of accident, and then burning that's going on pretty much planned afterwards. There's residents in this area that aren't buying that this was all done in their best interest, which is of course what's being said. Watch this one resident talk about it.
If you have not evacuated, please leave the area.
These aren't storm clouds. This is that they burn off that they burn off in East Palestine. This is not fucking storm clouds. You could have transferred the contents. You didn't have to do this. You did it because of time and money. That's exactly why you did it.
The EPA is talking about who's to blame, specifically the railroad company Norfolk Southern, as being the culprits behind this whole thing. And as I said, maybe, but there's also some regulatory issues as well. But by the way, the EPA and the Biden administration are saying, hey, you guys, just return. I feel like that guy in that last video clip is not looking to return if he even had the ability to leave in the first place. But to return and look at those same clouds that he was pointing out aren't just some storm clouds, maybe different kinds. Here's that one headline, because the Biden administration insists even that Ohio air is safe after the chemical explosion is sparking those types of fears. And as I pointed out, the EPA said everything is great with the water and air as well. Now we're talking about the water. Maybe we should glance at the water and see what's going on there. Watch.
With the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Emergency Response. As we planned for, Throughout the burn, we have not found any hits to the waterway. There was no impact. It was anticipated to be that way. Checking during and now post has confirmed that. So they're very positive for the protection of the waterway. And we continue that monitoring program. Incident, there was impact to Sulphur Creek and waters of the state of Ohio. Since that point in time, we have been able to successfully control that runoff and contain the water and either treat it in place along with a robust sampling program.
The problem that we have here with these types of declarations and results like that is there are folks that are living there, or at least nearby. They can take images and videos and show folks what it is that they're experiencing, because most of us are not in East Palestine. Is that East Palestine, Ohio, where this went down? And as we see the dead creatures from the waterways, from frogs to fish, and probably everything else in between, as they talk about how safe it is for humans to come back. There was also someone else who's an expert in this field, and he said, we just don't know what's gonna happen maybe in the next 10 years, 15 years. Maybe we're gonna have this burst of cancer patients from this area as well, because there's all kinds of chemicals that I can't pronounce here as we go to this graphic 2 here that are in the air. So if you can't pronounce them all that well, then maybe you shouldn't be ingesting them and not knowing exactly what amounts are coming in to your body. So that's the situation we've got going on, and many folks aren't trusting these declarations of the things that they're supposed to do later. Might be a good reason for that, because David Sirota explained how the Obama administration was looking to end these types of things, or at least lessen these types of train derailments with regulatory issues and regulatory laws in place to do so. But that all changed because of money, 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 money. Watch.
To this. So there was a derailment in 2012 in New Jersey,
releasing 20,000 gallons of dangerous chemicals and noxious gas into the air.
There's children in the town that are being affected by this.
And there was pressure on regulators to do something about those kinds of trains. And so the Obama administration had a rule proposed to better regulate these trains. And the chemical industry lobbyists went to work pressuring the regulatory agency to limit the definition of what a high hazard flammable train is. Limit it in a way that the train in Ohio, that kind of train ended up not being classified as a high hazard flammable train. Trains that were subject to this rule were going to be required to use a special kind of new braking system to try to deter or at least reduce the damage from derailments. Obama's rule included that measure to expand the larger use of those brakes on the nation's rail system. But in that 2016 election year, the Republican Party got about $6 million from the rail industry, and Senate Republicans started beating the drum for Trump to repeal the rule.
You guys noticing how this works yet? Anytime there's something, as regulatory issues are put forward or put place to save people's lives, maybe even save these types of damages to this rail company itself and their transportation, of course, that's gonna cost us a little bit more money from multi-million, billion-dollar corporations. So they just drop a couple million to the right politicians, and those right politicians say, yeah, you know what, that whole thing about American lives and representing our people and pro-life, all that type of stuff, my pockets have been lined with cash. Maybe I can win re-election based off of this. Maybe I can demonize my political opponents with that extra cash. I'll take it, F your life. And now we have results like this. It's not the first time. In all kinds of different accidents and spills and pains and non-regulatory issues in our country, real regular folks are affected by it, and the money is always the issue, Jess.
Right, yeah, this comes after Congress in the United States voted to end a potential rail strike. And they were striking for ending precision scheduled railroading, which meant they had longer hours, there was less staff on these trains, they had longer trains. It basically meant less safety for the workers, but also less safety for everybody in the towns that they're passing through. And derailments happen under those conditions. Norfolk Southern had $3.27 billion in profit last year alone. Norfolk Southern just offered this town in Palestine, Ohio, East Palestine, $25,000
There are 5,000 residents there. That's $5 per resident. So when they say that the reason they're passing this legislation to avoid a rail strike is because a strike would be bad for the economy, what they mean is it would be bad for the 1% of people who are profiting off of corporations like this. And they could care less about the 99% of participants in our economy who are workers who are going to deal with the ramifications of these highly toxic chemicals spilling.
And once healthcare is needed for many folks, where's that gonna come from? It's still gonna be turned into, hey, if you need some healthcare, hey, you American who pay into our entire system with your taxes, you are trying to feed off of other Americans who are better than you because they make more money because they've already fleeced enough politicians to give them those advantages, or they just walked into it already. You're the bad guy as you die from a lack of regulation and then a train derailment and then lying about whether or not you can come back in here or not. Who cares, right? Oh, but you own the libs. Oh, but you hate those trans children. Oh, but those gay folks shouldn't actually live. Oh, but the police actually aren't murdering black folks at a disproportionate rate. All that stuff is what they've got you believing while they're killing you too.
Yep, and it's interesting. The same people that are worried, right, that this is communism, we work so hard, and latest data shows that corporations are taking so much money of the value made off of our labor. It's just going to profits. It's not going out to wages or workers. We're working longer hours. We're being more productive during those hours, and corporations are taking that money. So even if we think about like the proportion that's paid into taxes, corporations are taking so much of our money. That could go to our healthcare as well. Money that's not being paid out to workers as wages that they're making off of our work.
It's and the fact you even said that part, then some corporations and companies can say, you know what, whatever it is that you have as far as your health system, your health that you need, if I don't believe in it because of my religious beliefs, I get to also reject that as well. And we pay more money for that. We've talked about this long enough. I think you guys get the general picture of what's going on here. Will something be done? I guess we'll see, but it's just a small town. Who cares, right? Let's shift gears and go to maybe where some other unidentified flying objects are going over small towns. This is really blowing up, you guys. There's lots of these happening. And the question is, have they always been there or are we just now seeing them? Let's go here.
Tonight, the US military shooting down another high-altitude unidentified object, this time over Lake Huron. The Pentagon saying in a statement the object flew in proximity to sensitive DoD sites and assessed it was a safety flight hazard and a threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities. The FAA issuing a temporary flight restriction over nearby Lake Michigan earlier Sunday afternoon, citing Department of Defense activities, coming just hours after airspace was restricted over Montana Saturday night for the same reason, initially assessed as a radar anomaly.
I think it got dark last night, so they couldn't fully check it out.
As new details emerge about the flying object shot down by the U.S. over northern Canada Saturday, an F-22 taking out a small cylindrical object first spotted in American airspace Friday, a carefully coordinated mission between the two countries.
Yes, there's the fourth unidentified flying object. I guess it's identified in many of these times, that has been shot down by the US military in just a week's time. Trying to figure out what else is going on here. Some things being a Chinese spy balloon to UFOs. Is this really going down? There's no indication, though, that these other objects are related to that spy balloon or that it's from the same source and all that. But let's scroll through a few of these that they've been dealing with lately, though. On February 4th, it was the Chinese PRC surveillance balloon that everyone was talking about that eventually was shot down. On February 10th, 6 days later, 10 miles off the coast of Alaska over the Arctic Ocean near the Canadian border, another unidentified object was shot down by a US fighter jet at 40,000 feet. The next day, another one in northern Canada. And then a day after that, over Michigan's Upper Peninsula near Lake Huron, another unidentified object flying at 20,000 feet was shot down as well. I guess it's happening so rapidly because we had a few days to talk about and discuss whether or not the balloon that was floating around, the Canadian border around Montana, I believe, whether or not that was the right move to do or when they're going to do it and how so. It's just kind of popping up everywhere now. So have we been visited by other creatures from somewhere else? I think you guys remember this whole thing. Some of these pilots who shot down the object over Alaska, though, have given conflicting accounts about exactly what they saw. So that's not clearing it up for anyone else either. Watch.
On Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris that they are recovering right now.
Bob, I mean, this is starting to sound like something out of the X-Files.
Well, Jim, the speed of those airplanes, F-35s, it's no wonder they all saw different things. Obviously, there was some sort of propulsion system that was driving that vehicle. And don't forget, NORAD with Doppler radar is probably going back and looking at where it came from and see if they can track it back to, I don't know, China, Russia, wherever. But it's a great mystery. I'm absolutely fascinated by this.
Robert Baer was fascinated by it, but he also seemed to be trying to lower the curiosity of people wondering, yo, these folks didn't know where the propulsion system was coming from, didn't notice any surveillance equipment on these aircraft either. Kind of sounds like these guys from a few years ago. Remember hearing this?
Dude, this is drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like, look at that thing. It's rotating.
It's crazy though. Where do you land on this, Jessica? Because there's been the increased surveillance and radars that have been used since the Chinese spy balloon. So we're seeing more things and shooting down more things. Is that just a matter of more of these things popping up, do you think, or that we're just seeing them more?
I think it's more aliens, JR. I think more aliens are here. And
it's us from the future.
That there's an idea. That's brilliant. We invented time travel, and it's really us in the future trying to warn us about us. Yeah, I think if it's aliens, it's kind of like when you have an unexpected guest. It's like, oh, welcome to Earth. Sorry, the place is a mess. We weren't expecting you were coming. We really haven't got our stuff together. Literally since the beginning of humanity. That's on us. Sorry about that. But if any of the aliens are listening and you need a liaison between the humans and the aliens, like I'm down. Like just contact me however you see fit. That sounds like a fun job. There's also this, prospect that it could be Russia or China using technology that we can't sense. That's far beyond what we could imagine. That's also possible. But I don't think it's a coincidence that Congress gave a ton of funding to alien hearings, right? They devoted a bunch of time to UFO hearings last May.
Well, what does that mean though? Connect those dots, because I feel like I'm almost there with you. Like they okay, so some folks are frustrated by the lack of transparency, and they'll say things like the Biden administration is the least transparent administration. We know that, yeah, that's political speak. So what is it that the reasons behind that, do you think? And do you want that kind of information? I was just talking about this earlier to my wife about it. She goes, I would actually not like to know some of these things. And I said, you know what? I kind of would, depending on what it is and what it is I can do with that information, just as this random guy sitting in the middle of Los Angeles, what it is I can do with knowledge of what it is it could potentially be. And even if it's not necessarily directly harmful, I just like knowing stuff, bro.
Yeah, I'd want to know.
They give us more. You do?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would want to know. I would want to meet the aliens. I would want to hang out with them.
You just might see yourself behind one of those, whatever they're wearing. What if the alien suit is actually like a spacesuit and it's not actually what they look like? I'm just saying, I'm ready for it. I never watched the X-Files. I just imagine these things on my own. Let's take our first break there, you guys. A few of your comments would come back, though. I'm curious what you guys have to say. Have you guys experienced any alien life forms? Is this just more incompetence by many of our leaders in the country based off of this? But also the things going down in East Palestine, Ohio. A few of your comments, I look forward to seeing that. But also when we come back from that, we've got more denials from the Trump folks and what happened in the 2020 election. I promise it's a little bit different, but what this does show is another level of what they did know and what they did not know. And we're just hearing about that. We'll do that and much more when we come back.
Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word.
Okay.
This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull.
Drink it, swallow it,
No.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Dave. As you can probably see, Skype froze.
Yes.
Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Back on the watch list, I totally forgot to show the image off the top. We did that open video. Do you guys still have it available? The image from that lady talking about drinking and driving. It's this quick image I tossed, and if you have it, pop it up, and I'll mention it then. But because TYT members did actually point this out to me, which I meant to point out further. But the dragon who says, I think I keep getting it wrong. Communism is when you can't get tanked while taking the kids to school. That's what one lady said there in the open as her toddler baby even there was sitting next to her, waiting for a drink, I suppose. A very stable photographer says, bro, there she is. Child reaching over like, mom, just hand me the Bud Light. A very stable photographer says, bro, Burbank has more hairstyles than Jank has triceps. More for Burbank, apparently. Lynn, TYT member, says, Jessica, are you wearing your bedazzled boots in order to navigate the BS that's in the news today?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, hairstyles and bedazzled boots, you never know what she's gonna bring to the table. Over on Twitch, love you guys on Twitch. CS Samiwa says the derailment is as worse as I initially thought, and much worse than they're willing to say. Sucks pretty much. One more of you guys from Twitch. I am Sock says, I've never seen entire rail cars dumped and burned into an open environment over my entire career as a chemical regulatory specialist. Uncontrolled burning of vinyl chloride can produce dioxins, which can make a huge area uninhabitable for humans and animals and crops. I guess we'll see, or maybe we won't. We'll have to keep track of folks that are actually there talking about what's going on and seeing the results. Let's go to this next story since we're talking about denials and changes of reality. This is what the Trump administration figured out after they said all of this stuff. Watch.
I don't lose too often. I don't like to lose.
But are you gracious?
You don't know until you see. It depends. I think mail-in voting is going to rig the election. I really do.
Are you suggesting that you might not accept the results of the election?
I have to see. Look,
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
You'll never have another fair election in this country, just like if you look at the last election, it was disgraceful. It was a third world election.
How do we stop the cheating? How do we stop it where you get more votes but you still don't win?
Who knows? Donald Trump is still searching for ways. Little do we know he was searching for ways to back up his assumptions and his declarations that he was cheated out of the 2020 election. In doing so, he paid this one particular research group to find evidence of this cheating and irregularities in our voting systems, but we never heard about their findings. I think you guys are beginning to figure out why we never heard about their findings. Let's find out. The Berkeley Research Group was hired to study presidential election results in 6 states, looking for that evidence of voter fraud or those irregularities. That was ahead of the January 6th insurrection. It's very important. It was in December of 2020 this happened. But their findings were never released because the firm disputed Trump's theories about his loss to Joe Biden. Why did they do this? Because a person familiar with the findings said that there were at least a dozen hypotheses that Trump's team wanted tested. None of these were significant, though, is what the person said. Just like any election, there are always errors, omissions, and irregularities. It was nowhere close enough to what they wanted to prove, and it actually went in both directions. We already knew that too, because when we've seen some of this voter fraud or actually some of the omissions and irregularities, many times it went towards Donald Trump's way, and sometimes I guess it didn't. All of it was insignificant in the results of that election, though. It's been said a million times. And by the way, when MSNBC reached out to the team, Trump's team, about this whole thing, you could probably imagine the way that they responded to it. They didn't answer the question. They just said the same stuff over and over again. Watch.
Evidence of voter fraud, but kept the findings secret when no proof was found. The Washington Post reports the campaign never released the final results after the research team disputed many of Trump's theories and could not find any evidence that he actually won the election. In a statement, a Berkeley Research Group spokesperson said, quote, "Our experts provide independent and objective factual analysis. And as a matter of firm policy, we do not comment on client engagements or on privileged and confidential matters." NBC News also reached out to the Trump campaign for comment. A spokesman responded with a statement attacking Joe Biden and again suggesting Trump won the election.
Of course, the statement just talks about Sleepy Joe and he's walking through his presidency and that's all that matters. Sounds like they've avoided the question, Jessica.
I think it's a funny story. But firstly, like, voting by mail is very important for our democracy and for voter participation. A lot of people have a hard time voting. For example, my grandmother has a hard time casting a ballot, and so she votes by mail so she can cast her ballot from heaven, and that's very important to our family. I'm just kidding. Voter fraud is terrible and obviously doesn't happen as much as Donald Trump would like to believe it does. Of course, he's being very delusional, saying it's happening when it's not. You do research to make better strategy. Donald Trump doesn't think more than 1 year ahead, and that's very obvious. You know, we've done research before in nonprofits I've worked in to assess voter opinion, you know, to see if certain candidates would do well in the district they live in. Should they run for office or not? Do people like the kind of, you know, issues they want to run on? And we found that no, it's not the case, that they like the policy platform, and candidates have decided to not run. Donald Trump would have been very smart to say, okay, it's very clear that there's no voter fraud here based on our own research. So I'm going to tell the public, you know what, thanks to the propaganda and the fake news, you all made the wrong decision at the ballot. I'll see you in 2024. He'd be in a much better position to run. But unfortunately, he's never thinking strategically and prefers to live in delusion.
Well, also the first mindset of everything he does is me. I'm not a loser. I can't lose. Or if I think that, then it's weak. If I say something that's based in reality, it's weak. Sounds like he has issues with himself, and I think he pretty much understands just how weak he really is, but he can't admit to that because then I guess he thinks people would hate him. But there's a problem. They already do. Let's shift some gears. Speaking of hate, we talk a lot about Black Lives Matter, Black folks' issues in this country, and then the response from folks that are in power, that are in charge of things like legislation and things like that. Well, here's one particular person that talks about our gun violence issue in the country, and I want you guys to see how he separates these groups of children. Go here.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. According to an article published in the New England Journal of Medicine by the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, firearms are the leading cause of death for American children. More than 5 deaths per 100,000 Americans between the ages of 1 and 19 were due to guns in 2020. Thank you.
Mr. LaRusso.
Yeah, so if you remove black males in that age group from that, it is not true. And that is a symptom of a different issue. The issue that is causing young black males to be killed in their homes, on their streets, is a very different issue.
There's Kevin LaRusso, he's representative for this gun lobby there. And they're discussing the problem with the leading cause of death now for children in this country is gun violence, the use of guns here. But you notice how he separated black, not children, black males from it, because they're not really children, are they? And who cares about them? It's weird how, people say things like Black Lives Matter and they go, what are you guys talking about? That's everyone already knows that. Except for apparently this guy, because that doesn't matter. Don't count those. Those are irrelevant numbers. That's a bunch of zeros. They don't matter. It's said over and over and over again, especially when it comes to flooding our country with more of it. So anyways, what was going on here was it was a Colorado House was putting on a committee for the Guns Preservation Act, and they're putting it on the floor there. LaRusso was there presenting his gun lobby stance about how they want to make more money off of killings here. So the comments came from this guy who's a representative for Colorado's largest gun lobby, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, during that hearing in the state legislature on several of these bills. He gave some more context of these comments once folks said, what the hell are you talking about? This is what one reporter pointed out. Said LaRusso said gun deaths involving young black males are a symptom of a different issue. I wonder what issue that is. He told 9 News that the issue is gangland violence. And he also said no racial intent was intent in his comments, though, despite the fact that he said black males. They must just not really be baked in the fact that you said black males when we're talking about children being murdered by guns. He says there's no racial intent behind it. I can understand how it can be taken out of context. Where's the context then, bro? After a lengthy defense of his remarks, LaRusso acknowledged his comments, quote, came off horrible. They came off horrible or they were horrible. Or maybe your thought process behind black children being murdered by guns is just horrible. It's really easy to cut through all the BS and say what you meant, which is, you know what, I said something horrible. I discounted the lives of black folks. In fact, black children, they mean nothing to me. I need to be educated on the fact that they're human beings, and when they die, I should give a damn. But I don't, because I've been indoctrinated over and over and over again by, first of all, the fact it's white supremacy, and number 2, money. I need both of those things in order to thrive in the position that I'm in. So I need to discount their lives. That's actually what happened, LaRusso. Anyways, there's more, because during these hearings, he didn't say this only about black folks. He had these things to say about Jewish folks, and maybe they need to get their hands on some guns. It's an old school argument that we've heard before too with enslaved folks. He says, I cannot fathom why someone would say, the Jews would have still died in the Holocaust, so maybe they didn't need their guns. The same guy said. And he continued, he said, you know what? Maybe they should have taken a couple of Nazis out on the way. Maybe it would have been good for them to have the ability to defend themselves. And that's what this is all about. Is that what this is all about? Would it have changed anything? Would suddenly a few Nazis being taken out? Because where are they getting the guns from, LaRusso? Are they getting the guns from the sky dropping down? Would you be living there dropping off some guns and collecting a few more dollars so that the Jewish folks that are getting slaughtered and massacred by certain groups of people, that they can take a couple out? Because we'll feel much better if they take a couple out. Again, this is the thought process behind folks who feel other people who are not like them, their lives just don't matter the same. And they're very comfortable saying it in the atmosphere and the energy that's surrounding many of these debates. Because again, it's money and it's supremacy. As long as those things are still thriving as our general outlook on life, things like this will be said, Jess.
Yeah, it's absurd that the data clearly shows that the majority of mass shooters are men, let alone white men, 73 out of 139. That's a huge majority there when you look at all of the demographic possibilities of who could be a mass shooter. And so with this evidence, they're like, how do we make this about literally anybody else, right? How can we blame Black people and make it seem like gang violence? Because that fits my narrative and how I like to view the world. Is gang violence real? Yes, there is some gang violence in the United States. Is it the majority of children who are shot in schools? Are those perpetrated by gang members? No, but why is gang violence a thing? Well, people join gangs for money and security. Why do they need to find money and security? Oh, because the economic system has excluded them and the state does not protect them and instead polices them and puts them in jail and prisons. Like, it's very clear where the roots of these problems are, and they'll do mental gymnastics to avoid just addressing this reality, because at the end of the day, it's like you said, Jayar, it's about white supremacy. And it's crazy to me that they can just bend data points, right? They can just sit there and give testimony based on things that are absolutely not facts and make it seem like they're making a data-driven argument. That's very scary times when we have such a loose relationship with the truth.
As usual, and by the way, this all connects back to the learning about how, from our beginnings of this country, how these systems can still be in place to still have biases for certain groups of people. As you point out, maybe many of the reasons that people join street gangs, amongst, by the way, the street gangs aren't just a Black person thing, in case this guy doesn't know that either. But we glorify Italian street gangs. As a matter of fact, there was a story a couple weeks ago where Fox News, and I didn't even know they did this, so years ago, they interviewed a former Italian mobster that was from Philly or somewhere about his plan for better business in the country, as if he's this great businessman. Like, he ran this particular mafia for 25 years. He knows what he's talking about. Would they invite some gang leader from, as they like to point out, these major cities, LA, New York, Chicago? Would they interview him on air and be like, hey, Black gang member, how about you tell us how good business is run, since you ran businesses for 25 years in your community? Would they have that thought? There's a lesser version of it. Some mobsters apparently are worth talking to and we have respect for, and these ones are just savages. We know the narrative. We've seen it and heard it over and over and over again. And lastly, again, these Black children that are affected by this, they don't count. Let's go to this next story, because since we're talking about idiots and cancel culture and racism, let's go here. You guys remember this lady?
That because you were canceled in 2018, is that right?
I think it was then, yeah.
And
yeah, it was, yeah.
You talk about how you've talked to other comics who have also been canceled.
Yeah.
And y'all have a pact with each other to say we're gonna be even more offensive when we come back.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because we have to be more offensive when we come back, because we can't be beaten down. We can't let them kill comedy. We can't let, these people who are censors and book burners have the last say over comedy. We have to protect comedy. It's the last free speech art form.
Former comedian Roseanne Barr appeared on Fox News with her canceled ass to talk about how do they know what canceled is? It's like they know the same as what woke is. Apparently, you can be on Fox News and still be canceled, to talk about how when you come back for her comedic comeback tour, she can now be more offensive. Keep that in mind as we go through this whole thing. She's looking to be more offensive. But the problem is you see a clip from this comedy special that she's revamped, and it did air on Fox Nation, oddly. She found a way to be more offensive, but she definitely forgot the funny. Watch this.
No concept of reality. They've been living in a bubble forever. Asking questions have nothing to do with the real world. What is my gender, Mom? What is my gender? Your gender is get a job. That's your gender. What are they thinking? Ask what is a woman? They don't know that. That one they're asking all the time, what is a woman? I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is me. That's what a woman is, okay? A woman is someone who cleans up everybody else's. That's what a woman is. A woman is somebody whose boobs hang down to her knees with a prolapsed uterus from giving birth to 5 ungrateful little privileged. never had to work for anything in their whole damn life. My pronouns are kiss my.
Riveting comedy. It's things I've never heard before. It's outrageous. It's amazing. She said, "Get a job, you dirty kid." She also said, "They don't know what a woman is." You know who's asking what a woman is? People like Roseanne Barr, politicians and pundits that act like they don't know what's going on and just say, "Well, tell me what a woman is." How about you just listen to folks and move the hell on with your life? She also said, "These lazy kids." And lastly, my pronouns are kiss my ass. Wow, this is riveting, extra offensive stuff. There's one guy in the audience, I don't know if you guys noticed this when they went to the audience reactions, who was looking around going, "Hold on, why the hell am I here? This stuff is not funny." Regardless though, as I pointed out, she's got this new rebranded comedy from her canceled tour. But I feel like I've heard some of this material before. Watch.
I know that right now we can identify as anything we want to identify as, but I want you to know that I identify as a proud election-denying deplorable. Are you with me? And my pronouns are I won.
It's only one pronoun, but still. My pronouns are I won. Roseanne Barr again said her pronouns are kiss my ass. Maybe she was canceled because she stole this guy's joke.
I talked to a student recently at one of our woke college campuses who said she's required in every class to introduce herself and to give her pronouns. Well, I'm Ted Cruz and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
Edgy stuff. Did she get together with Ted Cruz for this extra offensive comedy? Because I was offended by it because I couldn't put up with the 30 seconds that I had to watch. Quite offended by the lack of comedy there. One more person with their pronoun jokes, because they're brand new, is Lauren Boebert. She tweeted this out a couple years ago. Apparently her pronoun is patriot. Maybe Roseanne will work that into her next comedy special, Jessica.
There's this conversation like, should things be off of the table, for comedians to discuss? And I think no, nothing should be off the table. Comics are fantastic people, if not the people, to point out the problems in our society, right? It's been that way for a long time in Western culture, since the jester went before the king and said a lot of things that were wrong with this society that the king sought out over. And it was kind of this way of the people communicating to people in power, what's wrong with society. So comedy's a perfect way to discuss social change, if not the only way, right? To have conversations that people won't have in their day-to-day lives. The problem with this kind of comedy, it's not that you're not allowed to talk about those things, it's that you're unimaginative, you don't have critical thinking skills, it's terribly unfunny, and it's a lazy routine. It's just not good comedy. The problem is not that you're getting canceled because these things are off limits to talk about. The problem is that you have antisocial views if respecting how people want to be treated is what you make your comedy about. Comedy should be about punching up and criticizing those who punch down, not punching down. It's very simple.
Well, she has to be extra offensive now that she's been canceled on Fox News over this. But let me just point out some of the things and the reasons behind her cancellation, which, by the way, was based off of her calling a black woman an ape. Let's keep that real. First of all, that's what she was canceled for, but she has to get more offensive, by the way. This is who she's been going after with this extra edgy comedy. At least 32 transgender and non-gender conforming people have been killed in the US in 2022 is what the Human Rights Campaign announced. This is back in 2022 on Wednesday in its annual report ahead of Transgender Day of Remembrance. The HRC notes that the number of fatalities is likely an undercount because the deaths of trans people often go unreported or the victims are misgendered in news or police reports. Again, the clowning of the of people giving their pronouns, which, by the way, I don't do. And it doesn't matter that I don't do it. It doesn't matter that other folks who do it. They have a reason for doing it, and my life continues on. Really weird how that works. But when you start to demean and go after these folks as if they're coming for your children, because we know that's the next thing that comes, then we have folks that feel inspired to try and take folks out and kill them, because society apparently doesn't care about them because they're listening to people like this. A little bit more though. The data does not encompass those who died by suicide, which has also been documented at significantly higher rates among LGBTQ people than in the general population. But who cares? Lastly, states have enacted 25, this is the other part about what happens here, 25 anti-LGBTQ bills so far, this is last year, including 17 directed at transgender people. That's according to the report. And more than 145 anti-transgender bills have been introduced across 34 states, marking the largest number recorded by the HRC in a state legislative session. So the hate, this great comedy that's edgy, can lead to people feeling like they can murder folks more at a rate and feel they can get away with it. Nobody really cares about their lives. And also legislators who then go in and create laws around limiting their freedoms. In this country that we like to brag about is the land of the free. But yeah, let's go ahead and get more offensive. I don't know why they canceled me. Hey, 32 transgender folks and countless others have been canceled, and they're not on Fox News breathing and talking about it like your ass is. They're dead is what they are. How's that cancelization going? I'm so tired of these people, man. You canceled me. They're dead. Let's go to this next story.
So the first bill for our consideration is House Bill 7. Reading clerk will read, please read it in.
House Bill 7 engrossed underage marriage amendments.
I'd ask the body to resist this change and vote no on the bill. There are communities such as our Amish, Hutterites, and Mennonites here in Wyoming that would be in violation of this law if it was to pass.
15-12. House Bill 7 has passed the committee of the whole.
And yet another example of many conservatives, their desire to protect the children. There's a bill going around in Wyoming where they're looking to put some kind of bottom into how much or how young children can be married. That's 16 years old is what they're attempting, but apparently many of these folks in power don't want any of these types of rules put in place. This bill that they're opposing would add that minimum age requirement for it and also other aspects of it surrounding folks' parents in doing so. Here's some details of it. This bill, which already passed the Republican-controlled Wyoming House of Representatives on a 36-25 vote last month, proposes banning state residents from marrying anyone under the age of 16. While also requiring anyone under the age of 18 seeking to get married to receive written consent from their parents under the eye of a competent witness. Maybe a couple rules involving this so that maybe people won't just be indoctrinated, groomed, and then married off to who knows who or for whatever reason. Still, child marriage in the country, though, is more common than many would think. I remember finding this out several years ago and going, I didn't realize it was this much. But it's also a common practice across the country, even now. While the number of child marriages nationally has been in a steady free fall over the last few decades, just 7 states to date have voted to ban it entirely, even as countries like the Philippines pass national laws banning the practice altogether. But then some of these other states are trying to go even harder towards it because that's the way we respond. Other states like Tennessee, which we heard from last week, have officially sought to go in the opposite direction, with Republicans there seeking last year to eliminate any limits on marriage entirely until public outrage forced them to reverse course on that. And we talked about that idiot who can't stop talking about how he wants every 14 to 12-year-old married off and pregnant. We've heard from him before, but Jess, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's the same people that are saying that if you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, you're a groomer, right? These conservatives are somehow okay with children getting married. They're never speaking out against these laws that allow you to get married under the age of 16 is insanity. And even between 16 and 18 is ridiculous as well. I mean, to marry a child off who's prepubescent, not only that, but their brain hasn't fully developed yet. They cannot consent to a life-altering decision like this. And it's creepy. And why is it that that's an okay way of life that you'll protect, even if it's different from your own? But me marrying another woman consensually is somehow something that you can't get behind. It doesn't make sense. And it reminds me of that video, right? About high precision missiles and how they figure out where they are by subtracting everywhere they aren't, which is a strange calculation to consider, but this is how you can figure out why conservatives make decisions they do, because they're not going to tell you straight up. So what do we find from the data? There are about 300,000 child marriages in the United States, and the vast majority of them are young girls married to adult men. The whole reason they support this is because they want to live in a patriarchal society. It's very simple. This is something that benefits them. The heterosexual kind of relationship where it's a very young girl and an older man keeps up this power structure that we've had for so long of women being subservient to men. And really at the end of the day, this is what it's about. This is why they're okay with it.
They feel it's a little bit easier if you got someone that's younger and maybe hasn't experienced as much, you can convince them of things like that. It's always back to the control. And when grown ass women have fought back against it's okay, we gotta go a little younger. Let's keep it real. Let's wrap up the show there, you guys. Yesterday was the Super Bowl, and there was a good indication during that game that the M&M's controversy has come to a close. Maybe, let's watch.
Well, by now I'm sure that you've heard the fantastic news, which is that M&M's and Mars are taking an indefinite pause on their spokes candies. And that, ladies and gentlemen, you can attribute directly to me. This boycott will not end until reparations are paid to men everywhere. And these are our demands. Number one, we want an all-male packet of M&M's. Two, we want an apology directed specifically to men. The egregious sexism and outrageous feminism of Mars and M&M's have no place in modern America.
I just want to point out that Nick Adams is joking, you guys. He doesn't mean any of those things that he's saying. He's just jumping on the controversy that's surrounding that people like Tucker Carlson, who also don't mean anything that they're saying about the M&M's as well. But I think we've come to a nice conclusion to this whole thing, because the spokes candies, as you guys remember, put out that statement, which I guess pleased many folks like Adams and Carlson. Not really though, but the whole thing about America, let's talk. Yeah, we made some changes and we're gonna go ahead and go with Maya Rudolph. Apparently that whole thing was coming to the Super Bowl for a new ad to let everyone know we were just joking, you guys. And I think it fooled me too. Come on, let's watch.
I can't believe we were actually put on pause.
Am I anxious about being back? Does it seem like I am?
I'm glad to be back because this is what I was made for. I mean, as a walking, talking candy, my options are pretty limited.
I guess they were in on it too, because Tucker Carlson's over this as well. Watch.
Woke M&Ms have returned. The green M&M got her boots back, but apparently is now a lesbian maybe. And there's also a plus-sized, obese purple M&M. So we're gonna cover that, of course, because that's what we do.
He's over it. I'm not sure what the purple one is. Maybe the purple one's the peanut butter M&M. Who knows? But apparently it's plus-sized and it's large and it's a problem, because the character is supposed to be of a female M&M. Can't be plus-sized apparently, even on that. Still, but we had the M&Ms turned into Mayas. We know from some of those ads, which I love Maya Rudolph, and maybe she didn't spill the beans that again maybe I should have seen coming. Jess, am I the fool in this case? You see this the whole time? Come on.
You know what's interesting, JR? M&Ms are made by a corporation, right? And they want to have some kind of say over what this corporation's putting out there. Should people have a say in what corporations who direct our labor power and manage our resources do? Isn't that called communism, JR? But no, communism is when you cannot drink and drive because it's my God-given right to kill a family of 4 after having a pack of Bud Light Platinums.
11 hours.
Okay.
Absolutely. But you know what? No, this is what I read in like the end of January. someone wrote this this piece about how this was a buildup for the Super Bowl, and I'm so upset at myself for not seeing it. I guess I was too wrapped up in the nonsense and the randomness that was going on with the M&M's battle. But they came back for more. But now the question is, what happens to Maya? Maya Rudolph had like a stint as the official spokesperson with clam M&Ms and things like that, joking around. And then they sabotaged me with this. But as I was, hanging out and peering into the Super Bowl, I missed the ad altogether anyway, so I missed it. My bad.
Never underestimate the power of American marketing, Jayar.
They got me. I don't like M&Ms, so I'm not gonna buy them, just like I didn't buy them before, because they're anti-man. Jesus. Thanks, Jess, for joining me on the show today. It's been fun. Another fabulous Monday out of the way, but I'm glad you guys are here with me as well. Up next, we have the Young Turks leading right into that as well. Look forward to seeing you guys also tomorrow on another watch list. See you then.